For learning objective B, we'll read, construct, and interpret frequency and relative frequency histograms. So let's first define what a histogram is. It displays frequency and shows how many values occur. So if we look at down here, we actually do see a frequency histogram right here. Kind of looks like a bar graph, but it's called a histogram because the bars are touching. The distribution, therefore, is a function whose values are mutually exclusive or non-overlapping intervals. So what that means is if you look at this first bar right here, it starts at 0 and it goes just right up to 5. Then the next bar starts at 5 and goes right up to 10, so they do not overlap. Then we have the bins. The bins are non-overlapping intervals of equal width. So again, I just touched on these intervals over here from 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15. And then there's a frequency histogram versus a relative frequency histogram. If we look at it here, this is a frequency histogram because it records frequency or count. So we'll say the frequency histogram displays the number values, which are the counts. And then over here we have the relative frequency, and if you look at that, it's a percentage. That's really just displays the percent or as a decimal, like we're seeing in the graph. Now each graph is unique. You have to read the directions on how the bins are associated with each other. It says here the intervals are x from down to 0, and it includes 0 but just up to 5. Then the next interval actually includes 5 and just goes right up into 10. So here we would say that the interval includes the left endpoint but not the right. And again, it's unique to each problem you look at. Now as we continue to read the histograms, let's take a look at this data here. Now what they did is they went to each of the 50 states and they asked them the number of representatives you have in each state. So if your state had between 0 and 5 representatives, so for this case from 0 to 4 representatives, it looks like there were 20 states that had that many. How many states had 5 reps up to 10 reps? That was it looks like about 17 states. From 10 reps about up to 15 was about 5 states. So that's how you read it. Question A asks you this, about how many states have 15 to 19 representatives? Well, 15 to 19 representatives is right here, and for how many, that's a count, so we would look at the frequency histogram, and the count for that is 4. Part B, what percent of states have 20 or more reps? Now, there's 2 ways to look at that. If you want 20 or more reps, what you could do is you could go to the counting histogram or frequency and you could count these 3 bars and get their total count, which it looks like there are about 2 states in here, 1 and 1, and then you would say, well, there's a total of 4 out of the 50 states, and you can get that percent. Or what you could do is you could go to the relative frequency, which already records percentages, and for 20 or more would be, again, these 3 bars. If this top bar here goes up to 8, then this is probably about a 0.04. This looks like it's a 0.02 and a 0.02. If you add those together, we're going to get a 0.08, or about 8%. Then question C wants to know, in what bin, or what bar that is, does the median number of representatives fall among the 50 states? Well, we have 50 pieces of data in here, so if you add up all the bars, by the way, all the bar heights, and you add them up, it's going to total to 50. So we want the state that is in the median. So if you have 50 states, the one that's in the middle is at the 50th percentile. So you need to find the 25th piece of data. So what you can do is you can look for the 25th piece of data. You could look at this first bar. This first bar has 20 pieces of data, so it means you need 5 more pieces of data. Well, the second bar has 17 pieces of data. So we know that the next 5 pieces of data are somewhere in this bar count. I don't know where, and it doesn't matter. All I need to say, though, is I know it's in the second bar, and that's the interval here between 5 and 10. So it's starting at 5 and it goes up to 10. So in this one, it's letter B. Now you also could have done that through the relative frequency histogram. If we wanted to find the median, again, that's the 50th percent. Well, this is 40%. I need 10 more percent. This bar here is about, it looks like maybe 34%. So if you tally them both together, you're talking 74%. So we know that the 50th percentile has to sit somewhere within this bar. Here's another example. Here it looks like we have some data about, again, the number of states they asked. So I'm assuming if we add up all these bars, it'll total 50 responses from the 50 states. We can check it. And they wanted to know the percent of foreign-born residents. So if we look at this first bin here from 0 to 2.5, it looks like 5 states have between 0 and 2.5% of their residents are foreign-born. Okay, so on this one, if we're out of 50 states and we want to find the median number, again, we're looking for the 25th piece of data. So what I'm going to do is tally up the bars until I get to the 25th. Well, this first bar is at 5. This next is at 15, so I'm only at 20. I have to find 25. This next bar is at 9, which tells me I would tally up to, right, from 5 to 15, I'm only at 20. Tack on another 9, I'm at 29 states in total. So I know that that 25th state has to sit somewhere in this bar, which is between 5% and 7.5%.